Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Nerd Herd Comic Book Club, your number one stop for stellar reviews of volumes, arcs, or stories that us or yourselves choose. You can find us live every Wednesday on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and the replay on all podcast networks. Take a seat, get yourselves and your opinions ready, as it's time to join the herd. But first, please put your hands together for your hosts, Shane, Phil, Scott, and Martin, as they kick off this week's discussion.
Hello. Welcome to the Nerd Herd Comic Book Club. This is it. This is the final wave of season 3. And just before we go ahead, I'm going to do something a bit different. We're going to look at the leaderboard straight from the off because this is our competition. Yeah, I just want to do this. This is what we're looking at. This is our top 10.
That was so quick. What the hell?
Yeah, I'm just starting. I'm getting we've only 4 weeks to go with this season. Let's get stuck in. This is our top.
I thought you'd do like a subliminal message thing.
Oh no. You've ruined it for me, guys. I had this all planned in my head. Yes, this is the top 10. This is the competition, right? This is our last 4 books we're picking for this wave. This see kind of our new picks. Take that top spot and not peak Triple G Comics off the top. Come on, one of us 4 deserve it. Let's do it. Anyway, my name's Phil. I'm your host this evening. I'm, of course, joined by Shane.
Oh, hoi.
Scott.
Shemai, how you doing? Thanks for joining.
And Martin.
Evening all.
I said that really dramatically. Martin.
And
That's
Martin. Dun, dun, dun.
And this week, my last pick of the wave, it is Preacher, Volume 1, Gone to Texas, written by Garth Ennis, art by Steve Dillon, colors by Matt Hollingsworth, and letters by Clem Robbins. This is from DC Vertigo Comics from 1995. So yeah, can this do well? I believe it can. This is it.
And we're covering Volume 1, not Book 1.
Yes.
Book 1, there's like 12 issues. Volume 1, there's 7.
Yeah, and we should say this too. Like, I had no prior knowledge about Preacher, and reading the first 4 issues, I thought it was great. But then it started a new storyline. So technically speaking, this is a 2-for-1. We're getting 2 stories in 1 volume. That's your money's worth. That's worth every penny. Hopefully, maybe
none of them.
Yeah, let's see exactly. So yeah, let's just see who has joined us in the chat this evening. We are joined by the Funky Gibbons, who has said, "Howdy ho, unfortunately haven't read along this week." Which, this book's a horror book, so I'm definitely surprised you haven't, and hopefully you do give it a go at some time. I would call it horror.
Is it actually a horror?
I would say so.
Nah.
I wouldn't have said that. Not
horror like zombies and a storage unit horror, but definitely, okay, dark. I'll say that. It's as dark. Definitely.
It's a 90s book.
Yeah.
Say that.
Steve is here saying evening lads. Kevin is here, evening all. Island G said hi guys, and Gareth Hatfield is what it was.
Yeah, explain that emoji for the podcast. Go on.
It's
cool
emoji.
Surfer dude.
It's as if you're on the phone. You're holding your thumb and your pinky, like you're having a phone call, isn't it? What's up, dude?
What's up, dude? It's just the cool guy emoji, I'm gonna call it. So yeah, I thought, how do I even describe this book? How can I give a synopsis? Because there's a lot of mad stuff going on in this book. What I will say is this is for mature audiences, not for kids. This is for mature audiences. I think the reason I say that, because I had a thing with this today, I think it's an element of it's not just they don't want to expose this stuff to younger audiences. I think you have to be a mature person to kind of get what's happening here and understand it, and not kind of.
And you picked it.
Yeah, well, I didn't know what I was picking, to be honest. Yeah, so don't don't judge me on that. Interesting enough, though, and I tell you guys this every time I read. I always go into Goodreads after I've read it to try and get an idea of what people think and whatever else. And I've done this for this book today. And have you ever heard of the author Patrick Rothfuss, who done The Name of the Wind, the King Killer Chronicles? Okay. Pretty well-known fantasy author, and he had this to say, which I'm going to say. But do you remember last week when we showed this book for next week? I said this is divisive. You're going to love it or hate it.
It's a Marmite book.
So this is what he says. In my opinion, one of the best things about this series is its beginning. If you've never read Garth Ennis before, this is a good place to start because all odds are you're going to love this series or hate it. And by no small twist of fate, odds are that you're going to also love or hate Garth Ennis. Why would you hate Garth Ennis? Well, because his work contains graphic ultraviolence, vulgarity, and blasphemy on pretty much every conceivable level. And why would you love Ennis? For pretty much the same reasons. So those the things that are in this book, the dark humor, the kind of twisted, sick humor, you could really love this, or you can really hate it. What we have here is Jesse Custer, who's a preacher in a Texas town, as Anvil, I think it was called. He clearly has a backstory, which we don't find out about in this volume, but there's clearly something there. He gets possessed by Genesis, which is like the spawn of an angel from heaven and a demon from hell mate and create this. Genesis, it gets absorbed into Jesse Custer's body, and he now has this power called the power of the word, where he can like mind control and make people do literally what he says. He's now on a quest to kind of find out where God is. When God has abdicated the throne, he's left, he's neglected his duties, he's gone. So Jesse Custer wants to find God and tell him off, tell him get back to work, God. So we have his ex-girlfriend who's an assassin. He makes friends with a vampire, an Irish vampire in South Texas, which is mad. And we have
Irish.
Yeah, he's Irish.
I thought he was Scottish.
No, it says Irish at some
Yeah,
point.
fair enough.
I actually thought it was English initially, because usually vampires tend to be English in most TV shows and movies. But then actually said he was Irish. But we have this adventure. It's mental, in my opinion. It's the only way I could describe it. But anyway, I've spoken for 7 minutes already. I'm going to let someone else talk. I think this book is divisive, and I'm thinking to myself, we actually maybe split down the panel here, just knowing what each other likes. And if I'm being honest, I feel like Martin might be on my side, so I'm going to start with Martin. What's your initial thoughts on this book?
I really enjoyed this. This is a bit of me. This is I like the weird and wonderful, and this ticked all those boxes. I have to admit, I did prefer the first story to the second story. I liked the whole thing in Texas. That was great. I did feel like it lost a bit of its charm going into the second story, but still, it was still good. I enjoyed it. I would carry on reading this. This is something I want to carry on going. It's very dense though. That caught me off guard.
There's a lot of words. I think Shane said in our chat that is this guy getting paid by the word? Because if he is, he's fully capitalized on his earnings there.
He made his money there.
Yeah, Shane, what do you think?
I did enjoy the first story more than the second story. Had it stopped there in the trade, I probably would have enjoyed it a bit more. But I think reading it in a week, it's a lot to read in a week. This definitely needs to be a 1 issue a month story. It is very, very heavy. Each issue is like a trade. Like if you just do the word count for it, it probably matches up to any of the trades that we've read per issue for this. But I'm a massive fan of the TV show. So I was already going in expecting it to be ridiculous, over the top, crazy. They obviously cut back quite a lot, kind of like The Boys do. Like The Boys, the TV show for The Boys is very, very graphic as well, but the comic book was even more so. And it's the same with this. The show is very graphic, but this book is probably twice, if not 3 times as gross and as disgusting as the TV show. But I have a dark sense of humor, so I was chuckling along at most of the stuff in this book. So I had a good time. It was just a long time.
Scott, do you agree?
Nah. This was a bit much. I mean, I read the foreword, okay, and that set me up quite nicely, I think. So Garth Ennis said something along the lines of, you'll either like me or you won't. And he said, the fact that he's written this book, he's got a TV show, he's got a lot, he's made, like, this book has made his career essentially. And I just wonder, like, why do you need to bring up this, like, much like vulgarity to become successful? Like, whatever, there's no one way to skin a cat. Great, fantastic, I'm glad he's got a good career. And reading around everything what happens, like, he is a good writer. Like, he is very good at developing relationships. He's very good at just I love the way he writes accents. You're
Yeah.
reading accents, you're reading Texas, you're reading Irish, you're reading whatever, and it's very good. And that's a skill on its own. But I just can't. And I don't think I ever will. I think I'm just too sensitive, to be honest. I can't understand why, we have some of the themes we have in this book. Highland G said it's an adult book. Yeah, fine. Maybe I'm just happy with my little fantasy sci-fi, little, magical escapism type of books. But this was just, it was a bit much. I appreciate the writing. I'm just not sure I like the content.
No, that's fair.
I like his intellect.
Yeah, you can tell he's clever.
Yeah.
The way he puts it together.
Yeah,
Definitely, I agree. There's a lot of there's a few N words, a few F words, S and R words are used. Just things that were never okay. But in 1995, were probably more widespread in movies and TV shows and stuff. And I don't think he's writing at the point where he's trying to, like, endorse it or support those kind of themes. I think it's more the case where, like, he's showcasing that this is what people are capable of, and why not write a story about it? And you're right, he's a name for himself from doing that. So,
it does feel real, more realistic, obviously, than the other, the superhero stuff that we read. But it's just. And I know there's a man with the power of the word, and there's a vampire in there when I say the word real. But it's just, like, the themes and the emotions and the reactions to things, it all felt real. And the fact that what was the serial killer's name? Him, and when they were just telling the little story about how him and the vampire met. I liked that. It wasn't necessary at all, but I like that. It just gives a little bit more, it helps, like, thicken the line between that person and that person when you're trying to, like, match them up together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I only started reading this last night, and I read the first 4 issues. I know you guys think they were heavy, but I didn't even notice the time went by.
Wow.
I really enjoyed it. I just flew through it and really loved it. And then I think the reason why I liked it is, see, I'm a massive Quentin Tarantino fan, and I'm getting Tarantino vibes from this book. This would be the kind of stuff he would do, even in his screenplay, is that dialogue of his characters. It's all very similar. Like, if you remember Pulp Fiction, they're talking about royales with cheese and quarter pound. Like, it makes no sense to the story, but it builds those characters in that way. And there's a lot of stuff here that you're mentioning. It's almost about nonsense. You don't need to have it, but it gives you, the reader, a better sense of that character. And I actually think all the characters had enough screen time, paper time, what you want to call it, to really enjoy all of them, especially the three main guys. Jesse, Tulip, and what's his name? Cassidy, the vampire. Yeah. And so I read the first 4 issues and I paused, and I actually watched the first episode of the TV show as well. And the TV show is actually, again, Tarantino-esque. Like that, it injects the little bit of humor scene. It has the kind of madness and the really funky, cool dialogue, and it's not quite Tarantino's level, of course, but it's up there. And like I say, I think that's why I took to this book. If I recall, with the boys, I wasn't that fussed on the boys because of the stuff they done that was too far, too much. So I'm completely contradicting myself by saying like this, but there's just something for this kind of stuck with me, and maybe I just can't explain that.
I'm glad you've
Maybe it's
mentioned
because it's not
Tarantino.
super.
Sorry.
Sorry, I say I'm glad you've mentioned Tarantino because I actually got a little bit of Pulp Fiction vibe
Mm.
from reading this too. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
the fact you said it has just blown me away because I was on the right path. Because I like that stuff as well. You know, I grew up on those films. So to actually get something, I think that's what it is. This is a product of the time, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
your Tarantino style films and your horror type, you know, things. This is what you got. Late 80s, 90s. These were the sort of horror things that you were expected to see in film and TV series and stuff like that. So it wasn't a shock for me.
Yeah.
I know Scott said he's a bit more sensitive to it, and I mean I appreciate that because obviously this is not everyone's cup of tea. You know, it's not everyone's. But from coming from that era, growing up in that era, I feel like I'm a lot more acceptable of this content. Not,
Yeah.
That's the only way I could put it. I've experienced it before, so it's like water off a duck's back. It doesn't bother me seeing these graphic scenes because I've seen it before.
And Pulp Fiction, you mentioned that it's literally one of my best movies ever, and it was 1994 that came out, and I remember like trying to watch that whilst hiding from like my parents. Like they obviously wouldn't let me watch that kind of stuff. But 1994, I was 8 or 9, roughly around that age. That's why I watched Pulp Fiction with my older brother, I should say. I wasn't like I done it myself, and like I think maybe that's why I'm not as sensitive because I was exposed to that at a young age. And I've loved Tarantino ever since. But that's why I think I've clicked with this book, is because of that vibe. Yes, it's dark. Like it's pretty dark. And I mean, even the the stuff that comes up with, the sheriff's son who tried to commit suicide, but unfortunately has this deformed face, and they call him Arseface. Like that's grim, but I can see why it would be an entertaining character to put forth. And did you guys get the page where it's like hints and it shows you like 4 different scenes? Do you get that? I think it was the end of volume 4. It was like 1 page and hints, right? And it showed you 4 cutscenes, but it shows you the guy Eugene, who was the son in the future. I'm pretty certain if you're going to check out at the end of issue 4, Scott, it shows it, and that's obviously what's to come ahead in the series. There's 66 issues in this series, I should say. So there's a lot to go with there. Let me just jump in the comments before I get lost because I tend to do that. Highland G is saying,
sorry, yeah, I got the hints page.
Yeah, so it shows you that character Arseface, and he says, "I'm going to become Arseface." Like that's his name.
Yeah,
yeah, I did see that.
Which is mental. Like it's completely mental, and yeah, it's just like why? Like how could you even write that and put it in a book and not be like criticized for that? That's beyond belief. But sure, mental. Highland J saying is also one hell of a weird story, both in story and character development. We definitely get that 100%. Kevin said he also preferred the first story. Highland G is saying it only gets darker as it goes. The first volume is pretty tame in the Ennis scale. This is the same guy who wrote Crossed. He's not for everyone. I haven't read much of Garth Ennis. Like he's from like Northern Ireland. Like I should be supporting him. Support your local kind of creator and stuff. And bear in mind, he grew up in Northern Ireland at a time where we had dark history, so you can almost forgive his kind of dark sense of humor or dark, how he finds the entertainment, whatever. Cassidy is his favorite character. And we also have Dean. I'm not going to show his comment because Dean has given us scores. I'm definitely taking that score. So it's great to have you back. Great choice this week, chaps. You're welcome. Preacher's up there in my top 10 of all time. Single-handedly got me back to reading comic books back in the day. Gritty, mature, clever, brash, and unapologetic. 100%. But the scores there, we'll keep that for the end. Funky Gibbons, Phil selling this to me with a Tarantino talk. I don't know why I can't explain it. It's 100% Tarantino vibes for me. You could roughly describe it as what if Tarantino remade Dogma. And Kevin said Arseface is based on a real guy. Who?
No.
Let us know. Is there? I feel like I want to read up on this person.
Well, that just made me sad now.
Yeah, 100%. I just think he just thought something crazy, like references Kurt Cobain and suicide, and like saying, what
Yeah,
if he
'cause
doesn't die? He has an arse for a face. Like, I thought that was mental. But if that's based on somebody, that is
And
sad.
he was already a sad character. I mean, when he's just trying to talk to his dad and his dad's just ignoring him, and it's just like
Yeah.
heartbreaking. Oh.
Yeah, like it was heartbreaking for both points of view. Obviously, he wants to do his dad proud and wants his dad to talk to him. And his dad, I don't know if it's a case of his dad just didn't want to look at him, or maybe his dad felt guilt because he didn't help him when he needed the help, type of thing. But yeah, we'll get onto that more later. Steve Dillon, I can't think of a book that I've read that he's done the art in, but I thought this was great. I honestly thought this was cracking art. Please tell me someone here agrees with me at least.
For the
Yeah.
most
Enjoyed
part.
it.
Yeah.
I'm just having a look, see if I can find something he's done.
It's just good old 90s art.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean,
it's 90s without being that kind of over the top superhero style we've used to, with the 90s art style, if you know what I mean. Like, there was a lot of pages that were quite plain, if you know what I mean, like really subtle. But I thought all the characters designs, the faces, like the stubble on the faces, I thought everyone looked pretty cool, to be honest.
Yeah. No, character design was really good.
Yeah. Shane, do you agree?
yeah, for the most part. One of my notes was the art at times is really, really good, but then there are times when like a few of the pages and panels are really, really bad. But overall, yeah, the faces are really, really nice.
When you say bad, can you think of what times? Like, I'm just trying to. Whenever they're packed, there's a lot of stuff. There were like scenes. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, and like the detail was a bit lacking in most of the panels for the background. Everything was just plain, unless there was something important in the background.
I
But
get that though.
it's fine. It's just noticeable when we've seen so many artists over 3 seasons of this, so it's easy to judge against someone who does an incredibly detailed background. Like what's his name did Wonder Woman Dead Earth. Like, his backgrounds are just filled with everything imaginable. Yeah, like he just makes sure he fills the page, so it's just noticeable. But sometimes the faces weren't great, but most of the time they were. And you know how I feel about faces. And they were all distinct. Like, usually an artist has a style for faces. So all the men have the same face and all the women have the same face. But every character has their own face, their own design. You can recognize them straight away in a scene before they talk. You just see a headshot, you know exactly who that is.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
And he was consistent through the whole book. Just, there was not, and I think I just said, look, he's back history, like, of what he's done, and he's done things for like his bigger titles. He's done, I'll say, like, more issues. He's done stuff for 2000 AD for Judge Dredd. He's done Hellblazer for Vertigo, and he's done Punisher Max, Punisher from Marvel Knights. They're sort of his bigger ones. He's had a few issues of Animal Man for Vertigo, so he seems to be he's from this sort of darker genre.
He would have done the Punisher Max with Garth Ennis.
Yeah,
I would assume. And I think they're reprinting that omnibus next year. And I remember thinking, like, Garth Ennis he's dark in his writing. How is Marvel going to tame that as such? Because they have to. It's Marvel, of course. Obviously, the Punisher is the one character you can imagine would be a bit over the top with his antics. So now this makes me more interested in picking up that omnibus next year. If this is the art style we're going to get. And
according to this, he's done the first 22 issues with Garth Ennis. So that's the best part of the run, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna grab that. Highland Jason, my only niggle with the art was a lot of the faces make characters look related, as they are a bit too similar. And yeah, I could see that, to be fair. Yeah, I could see that's the case.
But again, that goes back to what Shane said before. You find that an artist has a style that, all characters look very similar, because that's just their style.
I didn't find that, though, in this, surprisingly.
I didn't feel that personally.
Maybe it's he means only on the series. But what I'm thinking in terms of the Tulip and Jesse, yes, Jesse had facial hair and stuff, but like even like the eyes were all very similar. I think I know it sounds really strange, but maybe that's where I'm agreeing with at that point. Obviously, Cassidy is a unique, one of a kind looking character. But yeah, Kev has broke the unfortunate news, which I didn't know, so apologize. Steve Dillon has passed away now, unfortunately. Very sad.
Oh, it's a shame.
Yeah. But listen, the legacy is this art's superb. Big fan. So because of that, this brings us marvelously into our page picks. This week I will start with I'll just start with Kev. Kev, our resident artist, has sent a page. I believe he has reasons. Did I jump the gun, Scott, and just catch your word?
That's fine. I got it. No worries. Thank you very much. Kev has said, so this is his page. He goes, "This page is very cool. I like how the panels zoom in closer on the Saint of Killer's face as he blasts his way through the police. I also really like the muted color palette. I think it grounds the book."
Yeah, the color palette's great. I'm a fan. And Matt Hollingsworth, I believe, is he the one who was on White Knight? I think it was the White Knight book he was on. Certainly rings a bell. Matt Hollingsworth, could be completely wrong, but yeah, like for some reason, like these faces just remind me of the old school 90s artwork. Even like the dandy and the Beano, the kind of like the grittiness, the kind of the scratchy edges of the face. Yeah, I think it's amazing.
You're right, Bill. You're right. He was on White Knight and Curse of the White Knight.
There we go. And I knew the
Martin's our resident Google. She's going to answer all the questions we have throughout the entire episode.
He's actually just AI. He's just AI.
Yeah. He's not. But yeah, that's a great page. I mean, I was a fan of this Saint of Killer guy, just the way he looked, and he's just looks fierce and menacing, doesn't he?
He was cool.
Yeah. Great page. Shane, what did you go for?
I went for this page. Cassidy trying to run over the Saint of Killers. Just thought it was awesome. He's just standing there, and Cassidy just runs into him with the car, but Saint Killer just stands there, and just the car crushes around him as Cassidy comes flying out. I thought it was a really cool image in the comic. It looked really good.
I love the top panel where he's like the headlights of the car, obviously, and you see it's really cool. And that's the thing. I've actually picked 2 pages myself because I think the art does a really good job at telling the story. Whereas like sometimes with superhero comics, they can't really do that too well. Where this is like old school, where they're actually doing old school kind of tricks of the trade to let the art tell the story, and this displays that for me. I'll go into one of my page picks because we've had the Saint Killer, whatever his name was, now a few times. Yeah, I just thought he looks cool. I like the way this is positioned. The one big panel, a little small panel of them at the diner, and he's coming to get them, type of thing. And he just looks menacing, looks badass. I mean, he looks half dead. I mean, obviously he's white as a ghost and they raised him from the dead or whatever. I just thought, like if you're a photographer, you know the rules of 3. You keep your subject in 1/3 of the panel. That's why I really appreciate about this, to be honest. Yeah, thought it was really cool.
I'm so glad you brought up the rules of thirds. I got friends that take the mick out of me for that. I go and take photographs. I got to go the rule of thirds, isn't it? And they're like, shut up, you nerd, just take the photo. And then they go to take a photo in front of me, and they're like, do you want me to go by the rule of thirds? Is it? Yeah. And I'm like, mate, it's a legit, like,
100%. It's like,
style.
We'll go on a bit of a tangent here, but if you're taking a picture at the beach, don't take a picture of yourself full on. Literally put yourself on the little cross on one of the final thirds, and your picture will look so much better.
Yeah.
Trick of the trade. Not that I'm in the trade. I'm just a fan on Instagram of people who do it, to be honest. Let's see. Did Scott pick the same character? I'm not sure. Did he? Did he not?
No. I like this page. So this, for anyone listening, this is when the kind of these weren't the angels, were they? These guys, or were they the angels?
They were angels. Yeah, there's different kind of breeds of angels.
They were kind of being interrogated in the sky, standing on some sort of blue platform above what seems to be like a black hole. And they're trying to like argue their way out of being I don't know, imprisoned, incarcerated, sacrificed. I don't know what's going on, but it's really cool. This is probably the most I don't know, fantastical part of the
Yeah.
book for me. And then as soon as they got like dropped into that black hole, I'm like, where do they go? Like, where does that go? Like, what happens? Is it just infinite darkness? Do they plop out somewhere? Like, where do they go? And I'm hoping, to be fair, I'm never going to read on, but I'd like to know where they go. That's it for me. I'd like to know where they go.
I chuckled when I saw this page because it made me think the Phantom Zone.
Yeah.
I was expecting to read a bit of text saying, I will find him.
Oh, yeah. See, this is why I think it's quite clever, because he's putting all this mad stuff in the book, but he literally has angels, and the way he's described it in terms, he has these angels and different types of angels, and these guys here in the blue with the white hair, they're like the scientists. They're the ones who kind of, I think it says here somewhere, they do all the work, and all the guys with the wings are just show offy, and they're the muscle. And I like the way he kind of done that. Like, he built that kind of world, even though it was all quite subtle and wasn't really used that much in the book. But what was used here, I thought it was really, really, really clever, to be honest. Yeah, that was a great page. And you're right, I kind of want to know where they end up, because I think they said in that page they can come back or don't come back to us or something. So they're not dead. They're somewhere. I thought
else.
maybe hell. That's what I was thinking. But
good shout.
Yeah, we'll find out. Martin, your page pick, please.
I had to pick the Saint of Killers as well. I can't help it. A character I am just falling in love with lately is Gunslinger Spawn.
Oh yeah,
and I don't know what it is. This character just gave that vibe to me, and to have that page. This page is obviously when he comes into the bar, when Cassidy comes into the bar looking for obviously the Saint of Killers, and the Saint of Killers just blows a hole in him for not giving him what he wants. I thought it was great. It just shows, as you say, the menacing character, and then that Wild West theme as well. It was fantastic. I enjoyed this.
It's really cool. The Wild West theme is great. Yeah, big fan of this.
I will say, Cassidy might like being a vampire, and everyone not knowing he is a vampire has given him a lot of advantage in this story.
Yeah,
he survived that shot from the Saint of Killers. He got away with looking like the murderer at the end of the book by chucking the knife through his neck, and there's loads of advantages in there.
A good segue from what Scott said there. So at the end of the book, Cassidy is essentially framed to be like the the serial killer. So the cops are outside.
The Reaver Cleaver.
Yeah, the Reaver Cleaver. So because he's a vampire, he sticks a knife in his throat and plays dead. And then the reason why I've added a second page here is this is Tarantino. This is why I thought Tarantino. I can almost imagine this scene happening with some sort of fancy music, like Pulp Fiction style music, where they're in the morgue and the guy's starting a cigarette, and then someone goes, "Is the sun? Is it sun went down yet?"
It's nighttime. Yeah.
And the guy startled, thinking, "What's this?" And Cassidy just appears, blood dripping down his neck, and asks for a cigarette, and the guy lights it. Again, for a Quentin Tarantino movie, this is where the music kicks in, and we get end credits.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And I just thought that's so cool. The way the art tells that story, that kind of comical insert into like a really dark story, I thought was really cool, and I really appreciated it.
I don't know why I got like I think it's the cigarette, but I got like Constantine vibes.
Yeah,
it does look a little Constantine,
little bit.
But then, obviously, when I checked it earlier, he has written Hellblazer. A lot of issues with Hellblazer.
Right, okay.
It's Garth Ennis has written Hellblazer. Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Has he?
I thought he just said.
No, the artist.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
because he looks like Hellblazer. He looks like Constantine a little bit, doesn't he?
I wouldn't be surprised if Garth Ennis has written Hellblazer. Check that out while you're on the Wikipedia there, Martin, because that could be another series that might start. I don't know. But yeah, that's our. Has he? There we go.
Yeah.
So the same team, literally like Garth Ennis, Steve Dillon.
I don't know if it's the same. Don't know if it's the same team.
I can check that. it doesn't look like Garth Ennis was on the book at the same time, but it's Hellblazer again.
So,
So
and that's also DC Vertigo, isn't it?
yeah,
Mm.
And I'm assuming 90s.
yeah.
Like, what a time to be alive! Like DC Vertigo having these titles, you know, great, super. So yeah, that's our page picks. I think we're all fans of the art. A few nitpicks maybe here or there, but generally, I think we all really appreciate the art. So yeah,
Again, I can always appreciate the detail in things, and I'm always wondering, like, you know, we had like gunshots from the sides of people's faces, and their like noses and mouths were just destroyed, and their, you know, skin was just dangling and hanging around, and I'm like, why? I
yeah.
just don't get it.
But
Like,
they
I'm
survived as
sorry,
well.
and they survive, and I just don't
Yeah.
understand. And the whole thing about like the guy who gets his face cut off, and then like,
Oh, the skin. Is Scott gone? Have we lost him?
Yeah,
I think
can't
I
hear
think
you,
we've lost
Scott.
Scott.
Oh,
Sorry, anyway. But yeah,
broke
he
his
was saying
mic.
about the skin of one of the victims of the serial killer.
Turns it upside down and nails it back on.
Did we ever find out who that was? Was that a random person or?
I think so, but I just found it funny when Cassidy comes running in and his face is upside down, and so his mouth is up there, but you can see one eye looking through the mouth hole of his own face.
Oh,
I laugh at that sort of thing because I'm completely desensitized. I know Phil don't like that sort of thing, you know, faces hanging from ceilings and stuff. I get it, but I found it amusing.
Yeah. For
Yeah, I
context, like the difference is, again, I've said a few times with Hotel, that's what we're talking about. The difference was the guy mutilated his wife's dead body. That it was that context is why I didn't like Hotel. I don't mind a bit of gore, a bit of
Mutilating a
grim.
live body is okay. It's mutilating a dead body you have a
It's
problem
not.
with.
It
Just so
wasn't.
we're clear.
It wasn't his husband done it. It wasn't his wife done it. It was just a serial killer, which do exist, and that's the thing about what I think with this writer is, like, he's not endorsing that behavior. He's just acknowledging that this exists and why not write books about it. And I think it's okay. Yes, it's not for everybody, which we've obviously established. It's very much split 50-50, but I'm there for it. Steve says, sorry, I didn't get a page in. Pretty much finished it before the live stream. So did we, to be honest.
Yep.
There are a lot of words. I didn't find it as dense, but I will admit there are a lot of words. Like, for me, it's not building too much of a strange world or anything like that. They just talk a lot. But so do I.
He uses all the words. All the words are in this book.
Every word.
All of them. If you just throw your encyclopedia away, your dictionary, you don't need it. Just get this, because this has all the words.
It's all in there.
All of them are in it.
And Dean is confirming that he did do Hellblazer, and there's an omnibus available. I may check that out. If it's only one volume, especially, I may have
It might be out of print though.
I'll come
I
back.
haven't seen it around for a while, but it'll come back. DC are reprinting everything at the moment, so
yeah,
it might be
positive vibes. I'm just seeing Scott. Is he back? Is he not? Nope. He's gonna have to restart. We can't hear you, boy. So
Japanese.
Restart. Join us back, and then if you don't, I'll just take your 10 out of 10.
Scott never has problems. What's happened? Scott never has technical problems when we're
He was
live.
mid-conversation too. He wasn't like literally talking, and I went off.
So you
There
say
he
you
goes.
watched the first episode of the TV show, Bill.
Yeah.
Martin, have you seen any of the TV show?
No, when I was sorting the reel out for the Instagram page, I watched the trailer. But yeah, it looks interesting. I was actually quite interested to sit and watch it. So
I've watched all of it. It's fantastic. It's such binge-worthy show. Like you don't just want to watch one episode; you want to binge it.
See, I watched the first one last night, and the introduction of the characters is obviously very different. They've done things a lot differently, but not in a bad way. It's still really good. And this is the thing we've had this season. Actually, we've read books that have had TV shows, and we've watched the shows before the books, and the books haven't actually lived up to the shows. So luckily, I haven't watched the TV series, but it looks very promising. What I will say about that is that I read after the first episode that there's 4 seasons of the TV show. It's on Amazon Prime at the minute, and they cancelled it because it was too violent. So that
a good
tells
sign.
me again, like this book, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. Now,
Yeah.
it did mention the viewership kind of dropped each season, but is that because it's too violent? Do you know what I mean? So
It could be because the quality stayed the same. You know what you're getting from series 1, and that's what you got in series 2, 3, and 4. You just got a different version of it because it was a different story, but you got the same amount of gore, the same amount of naughty words, same amount of violence. It was all in there. So if you didn't like series 1, obviously it would drop off. But I mean, maybe it did start to get a bit weird in the future series. In the first episode, Jesse uses the word to tell Eugene to go to hell, and he disappears. Was that in the first episode?
no.
Okay, that happens slightly down the line. So he sends Eugene to hell in the TV show, and so the rest of the season he's in hell. So it's just him in.
The end of the first episode. Sorry for spoilers, guys. The end of the first episode, he didn't know he had this power of the word or whatever, and he spoke to one of his what do you call them? Churchgoers,
Congregation,
Yeah.
and he basically had problems with his mom. He's like, "Be brave, go talk to your mom, and open your heart to her." So he traveled from Texas to Florida straight away on plane, and then arrived at the nursing home to his mom, and told his mom basically what he thought about it and stuff. And then he gets a knife and opens his heart, literally. And that's the power of the word. Like whatever he says literally happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So when he tells Eugene to go to hell,
yeah, it's frightening.
Wow.
In terms of like a story trope, so to speak. But hopefully, again, in the book, he obviously understands that and he doesn't do those things. Obviously, we've seen in this book, he told the sheriff to go F himself. And the sheriff, unfortunately, cut off his thing and effed himself, literally. And that's the height of the this book. Which again, 100%, it's 50-50. Love it or hate it. That's where we're at. Scott, are you with us? Are you back?
Am I back?
Yes,
You are back. Yeah.
Hey, I have a voice. I have the power of the word.
Yeah. So, in terms of the actual story, like, there's a lot of, like I say, the words and language used that aren't nice to see you're here. But the actual story about him trying to find God and having this part, did you like the kind of main idea, the concept? Scott, I'll start with you because I know obviously I think you liked it, but you didn't like all the other stuff that came with it.
Yeah, like premise wise, like when you read something and you go and tell a friend about it, and then you just you go and tell a friend about it, and you just give them the footnotes essentially. I would like this if someone just explained it to me in a quick little bullet point thing, like exactly what happens. Like
you want the Wikipedia entry.
Yeah, like an angel and a demon make a baby that shouldn't have been. That kind of spirit goes into this guy. He now has the power to literally tell anyone to do whatever he wants them to do, and he goes on a mission to look for God to give him a telling off to get back to work. And then on the way, he meets his ex-girlfriend and a vampire, and they have to fight the police, and they fight this saint that's after them that was risen from a coffin and things like that. So like it sounds cool. It's just and it is cool. And I'm not trying to say it isn't. It's just the language and some of the themes were just a bit much.
Yeah, like the level he goes to for shock, almost like shock value. Try and get that interest. 100%, I agree. Yeah,
and I think for some people that shock can tip over into, well, I'm done. Like this is too much. I don't like this. I'm not saying that, by the way, but it can. It's very delicate. He's very close to whatever line he's trying to get close to.
Yeah, there's a whole range of people with various like different lines, and he's crossed quite a lot of them, I would imagine. But some people, like you're right, they're on that tipping point. And I feel like I'm on the tipping point. Like Highland G mentioned, it gets worse or it gets darker as it goes on. I do have a level myself. Like I don't want to go too far, But from this volume where we've got with it, I'm okay with it for now. It depends how far it goes.
From what we've read in the past, the line I know for you is hotel.
Yeah.
And same for me, to be fair.
And hotel was a strange one. It was really, it messed with you. It messed your head a little bit more, you know, and that's my line, to be honest. Even though this might be worse in terms of the language used, it's still not hitting that point in terms of like what's actually happening to people. I think they made a point somewhere in the book with regards to Cassidy, and it was the reporter Sai had said something on the lines like essentially he's a good vampire. He hasn't killed anyone who's didn't have it coming to them, type of thing. You know, he doesn't just kill people off the street or whatever else. So like he's a good vamp, you know, and I like that. Like, and I hope that he stays like that and doesn't go like a killing spree and kill women and children and whatever else. And there are certain things for me are off limits, but so far we haven't seen it in this volume. Martin, were you with that? Are you happy with the story? Do you not mind a bit of the vulgar? Or
no, I don't have many limits. If I'm being honest, I am quite open to whatever. Yeah, that didn't bother me whatsoever. I'm not a weirdo, but I don't
caveat.
I'm not
every weirdo ever.
I'm not a sick person, but I don't really have a limit with these sort of things because I think, you know, with reading the book like this, it that doesn't faze me at all. I know I touched upon it earlier on. It takes a lot to really sort of maybe gross me out or freak me out to not want to progress. I don't think we've come across a book yet that is anywhere near where my limits will be. So I'm quite excited to see where this goes because I like this sort of thing. I would quite happily read on, and if it gets worse, I could easily just deal with that. That's not a problem.
I'm thinking back to, like, I can remember Colder kind of freaked me out with the art style at times. Remember the cover, the guy put his fingers through his mouth and his eye and stuff. That was creepy. A different way of kind of, you know, pushing that boundary. But Scott, what was the book that you picked? And it was like about space and God and demons and all this kind of weird stuff.
Nameless.
Nameless.
Yeah.
That was meant to Grant Morrison.
Grant Morrison. Yeah.
Because that plays with your mind a little bit, I think. So that's again that's maybe my line, my boundary.
That was a hell of a thinker.
Yeah, I tried to forget that book.
It was it looked good, but it was.
Was it a joke or ironic that you couldn't remember the name of Nameless? Or
there we go.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Completely intentional jokes. It's all I'm
totally.
Shane, what do you think about the kind of overall story, the language used, the way you done it?
I'm fine with that. Yeah, no, I'm absolutely fine. Like, words mean nothing. They you know, it's just words at the end of the day. Swear words, naughty words, banned words, no such thing. But sometimes I get it was the 90s, so I forgive everything in this book because it was the 90s. You can't read a book in 2023 and accuse it of anything because it was a 90s book, you know. But even in the 90s, I know this was for a mature audience, but I think Scott said it's just shock for the sake of shock for some points of it. Like, you're just saying these words, you're just saying the naughty words because you can get away with it, you know, like when you're a kid in the playground and you're having a swear because there's no teachers around and you're all telling everyone you're just telling everyone, you know, and you're just like, look, I learned a new word, look at this word, oh, I heard this word, and you're just having a swear in the playground because you can get away with it. You wouldn't have a swear in the classroom because you can't get away with it. So you can't have a swear in a Superman book because you wouldn't get away with it. So I feel like he's just doing it because he can, and I'm okay with that because it goes with this sort of theme for this book. It is a place, and these are characters that would talk like that, so I'm okay. I don't have limits like that on words, on violence, on anything like that. My limit is with sexual assault in comic books. I don't want them in my comic books. I don't want it. I do not want that. Like when we had that in The Crow, it was a bit much because they sort of they didn't show the whole thing, but they showed more than they needed to tell the story. You know, you can have it in the book as an aftermath, but don't have the actual scene in a comic book. I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
But Violence and swear words I'm okay with.
Do you think, again, I haven't read too many comics from from Marvel and DC comics from the 90s. However, I'm remembering some stuff we've read before. What was the Ghost Rider one? There was a 4-issue Ghost Rider book that we read that was quite edgy. Not this level edgy, but it was edgy for Marvel.
Season 1,
Yeah,
Midnight Suns.
Midnight Suns, right? And I remember sitting there with a cigarette and stuff as well. And like again, you don't see that today. But I'm just wondering, because this was I'm assuming Vertigo started in the 90s, and I'm assuming with the kind of the rise of Image Comics that DC wanted to do something different. So if DC and Marvel at this time were already trying to be a little bit more edgy with their superhero stuff, did DC want this? Did they call for this? Did they want something really shock value, something that's going to sell, something that's a bit mad, off the shelves? Is that what was requested from DC?
There's a 3-part documentary on HBO Max, actually, the history of DC. It's called Superpowered, and I watched it over the weekend, and it does actually talk about them bringing Vertigo in, and the woman that was in charge of the imprint, how she went to London to find all these writers and artists to work on these books. They needed something different. The superhero genre was dying. They were on their last legs. They didn't know what to do. They killed Superman off just to try and get sales back up, and nothing was working. So they needed something. So she went out and she found English writers and artists and pretty much just let them do what they wanted to do. They needed content.
So it's obviously worked then, because they needed to do something different. And maybe that's why we have this level of kind of vulgarity, because they needed to do something out of the ordinary to kind of bring comics back. I haven't heard in terms of like Preacher saved comics or anything like that. Maybe this is one of the turning points in comics history. They needed to do something different to get more eyes on the product, to sell more superhero books.
This came out at the same time as like Sandman and Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
And all this sort of like all these things where people were no longer ashamed to carry a comic book out in public because they were reading Sandman and Preacher. They weren't reading Batman or Superman, so they didn't have to hide their comic books because they were going to be called a nerd. Now they were cool because the goths got to read comics, and the cool kids got to read comics as well.
And they're Vertigo staples, aren't they?
Yeah,
the staple things. This Sandman. There's their staple books that put Vertigo on the map. Same with Hellblazer.
Highland G's just saying here that I think if you guys read this to the end, it will test all your limits. He pushes extreme context and it goes on. Just a friendly warning. I read it through once and sold my books. Does that mean you've read it once, but you enjoyed it, but you didn't have the appetite to go back to it, or you read them all and hated it? Do you know what I mean? Like, did you actually enjoy it, but you thought, I couldn't do that again? That was a lot of effort, and what's I'm thinking of, like, morally you couldn't do it again type of thing. Let us know.
Did he reach his max? Did he reach his limits?
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. He reached my limit on the final issue. Couldn't go back. Sold. Dean is saying, I definitely don't think Ennis threw things together for the sake of it. I love his writing relies on contrast. The Boys highlights the reality of the ultra-violence of superheroes, and here we have the contrast of the holy and the unholy nature of humankind and their intention. I think that definitely becomes more prominent later on. And that's what I kind of think, like it was said earlier on, like he's not making stuff up. He's just showing the reality of humans are nasty people. He's showing what can be done and what humans are essentially capable of, whether good or bad. And again, like Scott saying too, that's not for everybody. You don't have to read that. If people are happy to do it and read it, great, but it's not for everybody. And that's why it's a divisive title. But yeah, I am a fan. But we are approaching towards the end of the show. Folks, do you have any final points you want to make before we get them all important scores?
I did just want to bring one thing up because it's totally different from the comic book and the TV show. Eugene, even though like in this he mumbles and they have to give you little boxes to tell you what he's saying, they do the same thing in the TV show. Even though you can slightly understand the actor, they put subtitles up when he speaks. But he's such a good character in the TV show. Like I say, he goes to hell in the first season and he has to escape hell. But to do so, he needs Hitler's help. So him and Adolf Hitler do a jailbreak from hell and escape. And then by the end of the show, Adolf Hitler has a fight with a Jesus Christ clone. So like, if you ever want like complete mental craziness in a TV show, check out the TV show because it is so much fun from start to end. It is just, you never expect what's coming in any of the seasons.
I wonder if that's the same in the book, because the general idea is that from the comments that this book gets worse and more mad. Highland G is saying like it wasn't harsh enough for him to stop and finishing, but some of the character changes as things go on didn't sit well with him, so he didn't want to reread it. I think he still enjoyed it. He just, once he had his fill of it, and that was it. Folks, this is your chance. Get those all important scores in if you read along. We're only assessing, we're only judging volume 1, which is 1 to 7. I know it's hard if you read the entire series, but that's what we're looking at. Give your scores. We'll add them up with ours, and we'll see, does it take Stray Dogs off the top spot? Does it come in the top 10? Does it come last? Who knows? Shane, we will start with you. Your final thoughts and scores.
But yeah, like I said, I enjoyed the first story in this trade more than the second story, but the second story was still decent. I just think I needed time between them. A week is a bit much. Like I say, it's a bit short of a time to read these 7 issues because they are so dense. And I didn't notice until Scott was sort of giving his Cliff Notes version, but he made this sound like the Wizard of Oz. You know, this guy's off to see God, and along the way he meets a vampire and an assassin, and they've got to stop. Like, it just sounded like the Wizard of Oz. I was just like, it's fun, it's crazy, it's over the top, it's meant to be. It's dark, it's gritty, it's 90s. It's pretty much what you'd expect. I personally wouldn't read on because I do think I enjoyed the TV show a bit more. And there was too many changes for me to want to read on in the book to see like what else they changed. But yeah, it's not a bad book. It's very 90s. I'm going to give this a solid 7.
Nice. Scott, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said throughout this, I appreciate the thought and the intellect and the creativity that's gone into this book, and I really liked, you know what I'm like, I love character development, I love the relationships, and I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed the reveal of Vampire Man. I can't remember his name. Cassidy, yeah, being revealed as a vampire. That kind of threw me a bit, and I enjoyed that. But yeah, the premise of the book is really good, but there were just some parts in there which really just made me think, really, is that necessary and all that? So yeah, with all that being said, I really enjoyed the art as well. Classic, 90s vibe as well. You could look at any page and go, when was this book made? And you would go, yeah, that's a 90s book, yeah, I'm going for a 7 as well.
Nice. Martin, where are you at on this?
I am going to mirror a little bit what the lads have said, because I love the art style on this. I thought Steve Dillon done a great job. I could read more of this, easily read more of this with this art. The writing as well did not faze me at all of how graphic it can get. I would want to read more. Did I think this was a big volume? No, I enjoyed the first part of the story. It was a great story. But I do feel it dips a little bit in the second one. I just felt like it lost me a little bit. But I would continue because I felt like it did end on a stage where I wanted to know more. I don't really want to check out the TV series at this point because I'd like to read more of the story, because I feel if Shane says what he's saying is true and the TV series is better, I feel like I will not continue reading this book if it's better. So for me, I'm going to give it a 7.5 because there's room there for it to get better.
Yeah. Thanks very much. We have a few scores in the chat. This is your last chance. This is your last 30 seconds to get your scores in before when I give mine. So I bought this book one day in Liverpool. I was just passing Forbidden Planet. It was on sale and I bought it, right? didn't get around to reading it till now, but I'm all in on this. I'm now torn. Do I buy the paperbacks or do I go for the absolute editions? The art's fantastic. Love the art, love the style. For me, it's kind of what I like to look at, especially for indie books that are a little bit over the top. Like it suits the vibe essentially. I do agree some of the themes and language and things are a bit much. They do cut deep, and I can see why it's divisive. But again, I'm maybe giving Garth Ennis the benefit of the doubt and thinking he's not trying to hurt anybody, or he's literally just showing here's the world. We're not all nice people. But for me, telling a really compelling story. I can remember the Sandman, and it touched on the kind of spiritual kind of stuff, and I wasn't sold on the Sandman initially. I'm actually back into that because I'm loving the audio book for it. But I think Preacher, I'm gonna take a big dive into here. Really enjoyed it. Love the art, love the story. The characters are great. Cassidy's great. Jesse Custer is really intriguing. Yeah, I'm all in. I love it. It's one of the best books I think I've read in the last couple of years, if I'm being brutally honest. I'm looking forward to more, but there's room for growth. It's not perfect by all means. The split in the stories, whilst I like the second one, it does kind of fall down, and that's the only reason I'm actually marking this down. I'm going for an 8.5, and that's where I am at with it. Loved it. Looking forward to reading on. So we have our scores. We had a 9 from Dean. From comment previously, we gave it a 9 out of 10, and going down to Kevin has given us 7.5. Highland G has given us 7 for the first volume. Kevin said it's a solid start. He will read on. And Steve has said 7 for me. I did enjoy it, and I'm curious where it goes, but not sure if I will read on, to be honest. And I think that's kind of the vibe that, even before we read it, with Patrick Rufus, his comment to say it's not for everybody. Not everyone's going to like this. You're going to love it or hate it. So with those scores, the herd average is, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott 7.6.
Yep.
Add that with my 8.5, Scott 7, Shane 7, and Martin 7.5. We have an average of 7.5. Is that correct? Do you concur?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. So we do know it's not in the top 10, unfortunately. Because to get in our top 10, you need to beat 8.3. The top 10 stays as it is, but where does it fall in with the rest of the books? 7.5 is joint 11th with Batman TMNT and Flashpoint.
Nice.
There we go.
Nice.
It's fair.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been Preacher. We've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed the discussion, but again, some of the stuff it's not for everybody. That's okay. We do have some things coming up for the rest of the week on the Nerd Herd channel, starting tomorrow, usual time, 7 p.m. I believe. We have Kev's Draw Along. How to Draw Iron Man, not Preacher, not vampires. Iron Man. And if you do follow Kev on Instagram, check out his little animation he done for his Iron Man character.
Love his chibies.
Steven wearing glasses.
Oh, I hadn't
Look at it.
that.
That's so good.
But you've seen the animation where it's he's taken off, haven't you?
Yeah.
His beard should be sticking out at the bottom, like through the gaps in the Iron Man helmet. He should have like some squiggly lines coming out.
Really cool. So we're in our final wave. That was my final pick of season 3. Let's see what Scott's final pick is, shall we? Let's see what we're reading next week.
Let's go.
So, Scott, sell this book to our listeners. Go.
We are reading one of my favorite books. I cannot wait for the deluxe to come out next month. We are reading We Only Find Them When They're Dead. Volume 1, entitled Book Seeker. 5 issues. That's all we're reading. It's only a 15-issue story, and that's it. But, oh my God, what a stunning looking book, and what an awesome premise. Cannot wait to get back into this. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I read it in single issues too. And yeah, looking forward to every read and see where it falls on the all-important leaderboard. But folks, thanks everyone who's joined us live, everyone who's been in the chat, give us the scores. We're glad to have you here, of course. We love the interaction. Please check out everything else on our channel. They're all our Instagrams. They're all there. And yeah, one final thing to do. Yeah.
We kind of have news.
Oh, we do.
We kind of have news. Phil said at the very start of this episode that today is the start of our final wave. We are also here to announce today that this is the start of the final wave of our final season. We won't be carrying on anymore. We've been doing this for 3 whole years. We've absolutely loved it, but we're going to do one last wave, one big bang, and we're going to have a good time. And then that'll be it for us.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's sad. I mean, Dean's in the chat tonight. Dean put us together. Yeah, I've been in for 3 years. But yeah, it's immensely sad. But we've still got a few weeks of us on your screens. So soak that in. Tell your friends about us. Let's have a great final hooray. Read some great books. And yeah,
and of course we'll have a show roundup. We do a season roundup every year. We'll do a show roundup this year.
Of course we will.
Yeah. To be determined what date. We haven't scheduled that yet, but we will definitely do that at some point after the final wave. But yeah, sorry if it hurts people. We have to. But it comes to the point where it's very much needed, and I'm looking forward to a bit of a break, to be honest. But we'll leave it for now. We'll catch us next week. Please come back. Get your waves out.
Bye. Bye. Bye, everyone. Love you.